Simon's confirmed the meeting's now being live streamed.
Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Planning Applications Committee. Slightly different today, as much as we've got some people being able to join us as well, to be able to put their views to us. If we can move straight onto the agenda. Item number one, announcements. This meeting will be live streamed, and it's also recorded for anybody that wants to see it on the council's website via YouTube. It would be useful if people can either put the phones on silent or turn them off. and just to let people know, we do have some council highway officers or officer. Joanne, is it you or is Tony with us?
No, it's just myself.
Okay, then, thank you very much. Thank you. Which takes us on item number 2 to receive apologies for absence. I'm aware of apologies from Tommy if I've got this wrong, please. Councillor Beaumont and sub is Councillor Hocking. Councillor London and sub is Councillor Tandy. Councillor Smith and the sub is Councillor Croft. Councillor Tronemans and the sub is Councillor Gutteridge. And Councillor Wilson and the sub is Councillor Brown.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? No. Okay, thank you. Which takes us on to item 3 to confirm the minutes of the meeting on the 28th of July. All I'll say is if anyone's got a problem with that, put your hand up. None. Okay, thank you. Item number 4. To receive declarations, disclosable pecuniary and other interests in accordance with the Landmass Code of Conduct. That's if it's not already printed on the agenda. Councillor Tap. Oh, hand's gone again. Councillor Tandy. You've got your hand.
I'm trying to unmute.
You can hear you.
You can hear me. You can hear me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 6, Chair. I had already indicated in the past to officers that I support the application number 6. So as it is the last item on the committee, I will lead the meeting at the start of that agenda item.
Okay, thank you. I can see Councillor Guthridge with his finger up. He's pressed the. Councillor Guthridge. Councillor Guthridge. You need to unmute, Councillor. Try that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can now.
Can I draw your attention to my dispensation speak on the matter concerning the family's ownership of a small piece of land in Leyland Road? Chair.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. This is declarations of interest.
Yeah, well, I have a declaration of interest in some land in Leyland Road, which is in the Borough plan.
What type of interest are you declaring, Councillor?
Well, I will own a small part of it, a very small part.
I'm sorry, I do need to ask again. The pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest?
Well, a non-pecuniary interest, Chair.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. We've had a message from the technical team. They just pause for a minute. It's a technical issue.
What's the technical issue?
I'm not sure at the moment. The IT have said there's a lot of echo on the live stream, so it may be that that's the issue at the moment.
Is any other member getting feedback? No. Just hang on.
Yes, we're good to go now, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right. Thank you very much. So we've dealt with item number 4. If we move on to item 5, declarations of contact, if I can say that I have been contacted by, and I believe all members have, Mr. Castledine in regards to agenda item application number 1. And I've also had contact with Mr. and Mrs. Fleming in relation to item number 4. As always, I've given no indication of how I'm going to vote till I've heard the representations. Has any other member got anything other than that? No? Okay. Which takes us on to item number 6, where...
Chair, I raise my hand to declare the contact. And I think that Councillor Tandy has as well.
Right, it was off my screen. Okay,
it's all right.
Councillor Grant?
Yes, as well as the email from Mr. Castledine, I've also spoken to several residents on item number 2, but as is necessary, I did not disclose any way I may potentially vote on that. Just had a few residents who live near that application speak to me and ask me questions about it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tandy? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I did declare earlier, Chair, on agenda item 6. I'm assuming it was recorded earlier in the meeting, in the sense that I had spoken with officers supporting this application in the past. And I will be leaving the meeting when that item is discussed, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Chair. I haven't had the information from Mr. Castledine. When I agreed to substitute for Councillor Wilson, he did send it to me, but it arrived in a format that wasn't supported by my computer, and it was just gobbledygook. So I haven't been able to read it, so therefore I've actually had no contact from him.
Okay. Councillor Guthridge, do you not have a thing on your bar? There's a hand that you click on to raise. We can't hear you. You need to unmute.
I do not have that, Chair.
Okay. I'll keep my eye open for your hand going up there.
Thank you, Chair. But can I just say, I have not been contacted by Mr. Castledine. I did attend a open forum on the plans for the Bulkington developments many years ago, and I think I'll just say that. Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you. In which case it takes on to application planning issues where people have indicated a desire to speak or to have their statements read out. Just to run through that with those people that are with us tonight. The officer will present the report. Following on from that, your statement will be read out, or you will verbally make your own statement. There may be points of clarification after that. You get 3 minutes, by the way, presentation. And then there'll be points of clarification and members wish to do so. Following on from that, once something's been moved and seconded for the recommendations from the officers, the committee will debate the matter and hopefully reach a decision tonight. We do, on most occasions, sometimes things are deferred, further information or site visits, but clearly site visits are pretty much not an option at the moment. Thank you. So, if we move on to our first item then, which is Bedworth Road, Bulkington. Jackie?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. It's just a little bit of delay whilst it goes through.
Okay.
Right. Can you confirm whether you can see that, Chair, please?
Yeah, it's come up now, yeah.
Sorry, you went dead then. Can you just confirm that you can see that?
It's gone off again, Jackie.
Okay, hang on.
We're back. It's back on screen, Jackie.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Right. Okay, you're happy for me to start? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This is for a full planning application for 188 dwellings on one situation to the north of Bedworth Road, Bulkington. The site is located on the western edge of Bulkington and is bounded by the railway to the west and the existing residential estate of Severn Road to the east. To the north of the site is open fields. The site is currently vacant but was farmed in the past. The land is part of the strategic housing allocation in the borough plan known as HSG8, which allocates land for housing on the west of Bulkington. The rest of the allocation is to the south of Bedworth Road and has not yet come forward as a planning application. The application was previously deferred by committee to enable the concept plans to be adopted. These concept plans went to Cabinet on the 11th of March and amendments were agreed by Cabinet on the 24th of June this year and adopted by full council on the 15th of July. Therefore, the concept plan for this allocation does carry substantial weight. Neighbour consultation has been carried out several times over a period of time. There have been 22 objections from 11 addresses and 2 anonymous and 1 comment. One letter on behalf of the Bulkington residents' voice has been forwarded to members by an objector direct on the 21st of August this year. The key issues to assess in the determination of this application are set out before you on the slide. The principle of the development of the land has been established by the approval of the Borough Plan that was agreed by the Planning Inspectorate, and the adoption of the Borough Plan that was agreed of the adoption of the plan has been taken place following a large amount of background research and consultation. Policy HSG8 sets out a number of key development principles which aim to help shape the development across the entire allocation. These KDPs are referenced within the agenda. The concept plan for the site states that there should be over a net density of around 28 dwellings per hectare. Site proposes 30 dwellings per hectare and is therefore in keeping with the concept plan. Government guidance used to be that sites must provide between 30 to 50 dwellings per hectare, and the NPPF states that housing delivery should be maximised. Local policy states there needs to be a mix of housing types, sizes and tenures based on the need and demand identified. The latest figures states the greatest need across the borough is for 2 and 3 bedroom properties, but it's recognised that there may be a market need for 3 and 4 bedroom properties in this location. The proposal is for a mix of 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses with the predominance of 3 bedroom properties
and to which the Council's policy and housing teams have no issue. As stated, this is a strategic housing allocation within the borough. The allocation as a whole will need to provide at least 485 dwellings, of which this application proposes 188. These dwelling numbers are necessary to fulfil the 14,060 dwellings between 2011 to 2031, and which was considered appropriate by government and the inspectorate.
Hi, Jackie. Sorry to interrupt. IT have just said there is still an echo on the live stream and have asked, is the chair happy to still continue? Chair?
Yeah. Carry on, Jackie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last year's 5-year housing supply information in April 2019 calculated a 5-year supply figure of 5.83 years. Delivery of the strategic allocated sites are necessary to provide this. The Council's 5-year housing land supply calculated in April this year shows the figure has reduced to 5.15 years. This is due to the fact not as many of the strategic housing allocation sites as predicted have yet come forwards. Due to COVID-19, this amount could drop even further in the next year. The NPPF makes clear stipulations of the importance of maintaining a 5-year housing land supply, and clearly states that the failure to do so could mean the borough plan becomes out of date, which, according to national policy, would bring in a tilted balance for having to approve non-allocated sites. Members will recall that prior to the adoption of the plan, this meant the borough was open to a huge influx of applications on non-allocated sites, which in the absence of a 5-year supply or up-to-date plan, meant that great weight had to be given to the approval of these non-allocated sites, and which could happen again if the 5-year supply is not maintained. The landowner on this site has informed officers that it already has a developer in contractual arrangements and indicated that the site can be delivered in the near future and be a contributor to the local plan targets. The government's intention to promote house building to support the economy. Overall, the principles of this site for residential purposes is deemed to be acceptable. The site proposes 25% of the dwellings to be affordable in accordance with local policy, wherein 74% affordable rented homes and 26% shared ownership. The affordable mix would comprise of 4 one-bedroom basenettes, 19 2-bed houses, 23 bed houses, and 4 4-bed houses. The clusters are shown in blue on the slide. Affordable units must be pepper-potted around the site, but registered social landlords like to see groups for ease of maintenance. The scheme before you proposes 7 groups of between 4 and 9 dwellings in each cluster. The newly adopted Affordable Housing SPD 2020 specifies that for the size of the site there should be 3 to 5 clusters of up to 10 dwellings. The proposal therefore exceeds the minimum pepper potting required. In conclusion, it's considered that the affordable housing provision and layout is acceptable and gives significant weight to the application. In regard to residential amenity, the proposed site layout meets with the standards contained within the newly adopted Sustainable Design and Construction Supplementary Planning Document 2020, which has superseded the Council's Residential Design Guide. This is both inside the site and with existing residential properties. This is discussed in more detail in pages 24 to 26 of your agenda. Any minor shortfalls within the site are mitigated by orientation, road placement and site circumstances, which is allowed under the Council's guidance. Overall, it is considered that there is no significant harm to residential amenity. The design of the dwellings is to be a mixture of terrace, semi-detached and detached dwellings, with some one-bedroom properties having the outward appearance of semi-detached houses. The materials are to be a mixture of red brick, render and some buff brick, detailing of both hit and gable roofs and a good amount of detailing to add interest to the elevations. The slide shows a few of the house types proposed. As members will see, there's a good amount of detailing, including canopers, bone windows, soldier porch headers, brick sills, and a mix of materials. It is considered that there will be no significant harm on visual amenity. Highways England and Warwickshire County Council Highways were both consulted on the scheme. Highways England had no objection, and County Highways had no objection, subject to conditions and some planning obligations. The developer is also currently working with County Highways to discuss necessary works within the highway, which has meant some slight changes to the access and the provision of an initial and more detailed road safety audits. There are no concerns over the proposal's impact on the highway safety. Warwickshire County Council Flood Risk, the Environment Agency and Severn Trent Water were consulted and responded with no objections, subject to conditions. Surface water will be stored within subs on the site and released at greenfield rates plus considerations for climate change into mains drainage. Groundwater will also be via mains drainage. Severn Trent Water have no objection to this, but state that the developer may be responsible to pay for sewer modelling and capital improvements. This would be done under the Severn Trent Water's own powers. In relation to noise and contaminated land, MBD's Environmental Health have no objections, subject to conditions on noise attenuation, fire glazing and ventilation. In regard to air quality, the Council's Environmental Health officers have no objections, subject to some conditions for a dust management plan and provision of low emission boilers and electric vehicular charging points. Therefore, there are no concerns about flooding, drainage, contamination, noise and air quality, subject to conditions. National and local policy states the need for development to recognise the intrinsic nature and character of the landscape and to conserve and enhance it. To this end, the Council commissioned an updated landscape character assessment in 2017 to identify the characters within the strategic sites. This assessment identified the current urban edge of Severn Road to be prominent, and the assessment suggested that the new development takes the opportunity to improve the new urban edge. This has been mirrored within the concept plan for this northern section, which requires development to enhance linear woodlands along the railway, creation of new hedgerows and hedgerow trees along the northern, western and southern boundaries, enhance woody fringes of village edge through planting new small woodland copses and trees and incorporating trees across the site, enhance tree cover along site boundaries, landscape buffer along Bedworth Road frontage of the northern parcel to enhance the character and approach into Bulkington from the west. Open space and landscape buffers and the subs are proposed to the edges of the development to the north, west and south of the site. This is to soften the boundaries to enhance the approach to the village as per the Council's updated landscape character assessment and concept plan. The hedgerow to the edge of the site and the lane and to the north of the Severn Road is to be retained. Similarly, the crest of the neighbour hedgerow is to be retained to the rear of 35 Severn Road. It is therefore considered that the layout will protect and enhance the current landscape character of the area as much as possible and is in line with the recommendations of the Council's own evidence base and adopted concept plan. In relation to the buffer with the Severn Road, policy HSG 8 refers to the form of development. Not all of this is relevant to the north edge as it refers to the three parts of land within the allocation. However, point 18 of this policy states there should be a landscape buffer along Bedworth Road and which should mirror the existing landscape. Point 20 relates to the creation of hedgerow trees along the northern, western and southern boundary. Point 22 to conserve hedgerows where possible. Point 26, the site should be in accordance with the concept plan, including access arrangements. And point 27, that the site will require a strategic green edge to the northern boundary to provide a defensible boundary to include open space and the proposed allotments. Similarly, the adopted plan for HSG 8 states edge treatments and landscape buffers should align with the recommendations in the 2017 landscape capacity study for the site by retaining and strengthening existing hedgerows adjacent to existing residential properties, and what should be left as part of a residential garden space rather than separate areas of isolated green space. 3.2.4 refers to the need for landscaping and planting to the front of the development. 3.25, 3.26 and 3.211 refers to enhanced areas of open space to the north of the site and trees along the western edge of the site to the railway. Whilst 3.2.12 refers to the retention and enhancement of hedgerows on existing site boundaries to minimise the impact on the unity of existing residential properties. Key development principle states all site boundaries should be enhanced through new planting of woodland, copses and trees, while maintaining adequate distances from housing, and all veteran hedgerows should be retained and surveyed prior to development. In direct reference to the boundary of the Severn Road, the distance standards to these properties have already been assessed and discussed. Amended plans have been received after the application was deferred by committee and due to the adoption of the concept plan to show the tree planting to the Severn Road boundaries consisting of crabapple trees on white beams, both considered to be medium height trees, so as not to become a nuisance but provide screening. This landscape plan shows that these are to be a heavy standard specimen of 3.5 to 4 metres in height when they are planted. The concept plan provides a diagrammatic plan of the written requirements. The boundary edge shows the proposed landscaping, that's the plan in front of you on that slide. The boundary edge, as I say, shows boundary landscaping. This edge to Severn Road is very narrow, and it's considered that the landscape treatment to this boundary is in keeping with both the key development principles for the policy as well as the concept plan. HSG policy proposed allotment provision within the northern edge, but when the council's park team discussed this with the Bulkington Allotments Association to manage 10 plots on the site, the society were unwilling to take them on as it considered that 10 allotments required were not viable on their own, but they stated they would take on the equivalent if they were added to the existing site close to the village centre. Council's parks team have confirmed there is scope for further plots along the existing ones near the village centre, and this is the preferred option by the council's parks team, as they were concerned that on-site provision without management could mean the land becoming overgrown and ultimately be used for antisocial behaviour. The developer agreed to pay a contribution of over £10,000 to pay for this off-site provision. An advantage of these amendments is that the area on the site could instead provide a small child's play area. The main play provision is provided within the other parts of the allocation, but as this has not yet come forward, would mean it may not be available for the occupation of this current site. In terms of the land classification, the council's mapping system shows the site to be mainly land classification 3, which is good to moderate, with only a small area being classed as 2, which is classed as very good, and which is by the railway line. Naturally, we were consulted in relation to this application and did not have any objection. Naturally, England are the people that we would normally contact in terms of land classification. Indeed, they were consulted as well during the borough plan process and did not object to the proposed allocations at that time. In terms of ecology, the council's parks team were part of the pre-application discussions to drive the layout. An ecological appraisal showed that there were no great crested newts or badgers on the site, and bat surveys carried out in 2017 found no bat roosts, but bat activity for foraging and commuting. None of the trees to be removed were considered significant for foraging. As lighting can affect bats, parks requested a lighting condition and the provision of further bat bricks and new planting to mitigate the impact of wildlife. A biodiversity impact assessment was submitted, and it was proven that subject to conditions the site could be enhanced to provide a net gain. An arboricultural assessment was submitted, identifying that all the trees on the site have a classification of C or lower. The classification is for trees of low quality but with a life expectancy of at least 10 years. The main trees to be removed have a flail, damage, dead or are in poor condition. A neighbour in Seven Road has requested that a further tree is removed and replaced, to which the applicant has agreed. In conclusion, it's considered that the new proposed landscape buffers, allotments, plain open space, ecology and biodiversity are all acceptable or can be made so by a condition. It's also considered that the scheme complies with national policy, local policy, HSG 8, and is in compliance with the adopted concept plan. Workshop Archaeology were consulted and asked for trial trenching to take place across the site. 32 trial trenches were dug and finds were documented with County Archaeology, having no objections subject to further conditions. As members will have seen from the agenda, pages 25 to 28, the applicant has agreed to a number of contributions to various planning obligations, and these include contributions for the NHS, Bulkington Village Centre, George Eliot Hospital, sports and leisure, plain open space, and for allotments. Warwickshire County Council have requested contributions, some of which are considered non-SIL compliance and cannot be requested. The agent has agreed to pay contributions towards libraries, public transport contributions, towards bus stops outside the site. The contributions also include drop curbs to crossing points from the site to Borough School, 2 crossings to Bedworth Road, and footpath cycle improvements from the site to English Gentleman School and to Bedworth, and contributions to the wider Bulkington Village network. These contributions total over £1.5 million. In conclusion, the NPPF promotes a presumption in favour of sustainable development, and it's considered a sustainable development. The site is part of the strategic housing allocation within the Borough Plan for residential development, and therefore the principle of development has been established by the Planning Inspectorate. This provides considerable weight in favour of the application. The provision of 198 houses to the Council's 5-year housing land supply is paramount to maintaining the 5-year housing land supply, and which has already reduced to only just over 5 years, and which also carries great weight. Failure to maintain this 5 years would deem the Borough Plan out of date and leave the Council open to a large influx of prospective applications on non-allocated sites, bringing in a tilted balance for these developments. The site can be delivered in the near future and complies with the government's intention to promote house building to support the economy. The site will provide 25% affordable homes in a village that has relatively high market values for the borough. The proposal would improve the urban edge of the village and be acceptable to ecology and biodiversity. Therefore, the recommendation to members is for approval, subject to the conditions on the agenda and addendum, and a legal agreement as detailed on the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Jackie. We do have a first public statement from Ian Castledine. Wendy, will you be reading that out?
Yes, I will, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to address Planning Committee, which I would like to do on behalf of Bulkington Residents' Voice, given the many local residents who have expressed their concern about the proposed development. When this application was submitted over a year ago, it was far from compliant with the Borough Plan. It has remained that way ever since. Why is it now recommended for approval? The explanation given to Council in July was changes have also been made to bring the concept plans in line with proposals, which might be translated as the concept plan has been made to agree with the application. Approving this application would set precedents that councillors and residents should all be worried about. This is not healthy for the Borough Plan, which, dependent upon your committee's decision, is at risk of becoming a dead letter. The Borough Plan requires not less than 495 dwellings on HSG 8. The application site represents a quarter of HSG 8. Therefore, as a starting point, we might reasonably expect about 125 dwellings. This would satisfy the Borough Plan and would be consistent with the concept plan residents were consulted on. How then has the number of houses increased by 63 dwellings to the 188 in this application? Part of the answer is in the removal of borough plan requirement. All site boundaries should be enhanced through new planting of woodland, copses and trees. After amendment by the Head of Planning in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Planning, as approved by Cabinet, this key development principle was stripped out of the concept plan without further public consultation. The rest of the answer is the removal of the borough plan obligation for new allotment sites on HSG8. How can a feature of a plan that took 8 years to produce be dismissed so easily? The borough plan is the primary document. The concept plan should not take away from it. Planting a few trees in private gardens does not satisfy the key development principle in the borough plan. It is not an acceptable solution or compromise. The loss of green spaces and associated planting doesn't just affect existing residents, it is also a long-term environmental loss to those who live there. A selling point for policy HSG1 was that it would enhance the character and approach into the village from the west. The application proposals failed to achieve this. The existing approach is superior and residents prefer it. The proposals perpetuate the image of a place without standards and typify why we are... James, would you like me to come to the end?
Yeah, just finish it off, Wendy, please.
And typify why we are the most densely developed district in Warwickshire. The application was not plan compliant a year ago and is still not compliant. We ask the committee to refuse this application, as should have been done many months ago. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll just let you get your breath back and just say the second public statement is by Mr. John Jinks. So just whenever you're ready, Wendy, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman and councillors, thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns. Re-reference to our land, mine and my two sisters, in neighbours' responses of today's agenda, I would like to point out the following. Point 60. Given Taylor Wimpey have not followed up our reply to their letter dated 21st of January 2020, giving us access to farm our land registry number WK 409438, in spite of several follow-ups to make the development acceptable, we believe today's application should be subject to the following conditions. Number 1. Impact on sterilisation of adjacent farm on north side should be resolved. If the planning application is approved today, our parcel of land to the north will become landlocked. We cannot understand how NBBC can knowingly give detailed permission to the application when it would infringe third-party rights. It would have a significant impact on access to the adjacent land on the north. This could be detrimental to the owner of this property. Point 2. The planning application should have an addendum to offer access to the Bedworth Road to the owner of adjoining land to the north. Point 3. Alternatively, the applicants should agree with the neighbouring landowner to the imminent issue with land to the north's possessory title, e.g. an amendment to the land registry to original boundary up to Mill Lane. Please note there is part of land between the two properties which is as yet unregistered. Point 4. The applicants agree to the true boundaries with land to the north prior to the erection of any fences and farm gates. Surveyors will need to establish the boundary. See Agenda Reference 50, Neighbour Responses. Point 5. There are several references in the agenda and also in the SPD of the concept plan, referring to open space and new allotments, which should be discussed with the neighbouring owner. See 3.2.6, also additional secondary vehicular access are possible from Leyland Road, bracket southern parcel, Severn Road and Mill Lane, bracket both northern parcels. I would be pleased to answer any questions now online. All of the issues could have been avoided had there been some transparency instead of ignoring our existence in spite of our contacting the applicant, agent, Taylor Wimpey and NPPC over the last 2.5 years. We wish to resolve our access and the boundary problems amicably if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Are there any points of clarification to Mr. Jinks? I understand although his statement was read out, he would be happy to respond to any points of clarification. No, okay, thank you. In which case, we'll move on to item number, the statement number 3, and it will be made by Mr. Williams, the agent. Mr. Williams, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just confirm you can hear me?
Yes, well, I can hear you, so I think everybody else can.
The application site forms the northern part of a larger housing allocation on the west side of Bulkington that was removed from the Greenbelt to deliver new homes in accordance with the Borough Plan. The inspector specifically confirmed that the application site could come forward in advance of the remainder of the allocation. Indeed, its early delivery forms an important element of the Council's 5-year land supply, which the Council must maintain if it is to avoid speculative applications that might lead to unplanned development. The local plan identifies a minimum requirement of 495 dwellings for HSG8. The proposal for the application site is very much in line with national planning policy aspirations. Throughout the Borough Plan and pre-application process, the proposals have been consistent and changed little in terms of the location, amount of open space, which is policy compliant, the development area, connectivity, and the number of dwellings. Borough Plan Policy DS1 states when considering development proposals, the Council will take a positive approach that reflects the presumption in favour of sustainable development contained in the NPPF. It will always work proactively with applicants to find solutions which mean that proposals can be approved wherever possible. The applicants too have always responded constructively to comments received from the case officer and other key consultees and have refined the proposals so as to make them acceptable in planning terms. Indeed, most recently, the proposed tree planting along the eastern boundary with the properties in Severn Road has been enhanced in line with the requirements of the newly adopted SPD and its associated concept plan. Council's Parks and Recreation Officer and the local allotments group do not support the provision of allotments on this site. Instead, they have requested a financial contribution towards the improvement of existing facilities in Bulkington, which the applicants have agreed to. The proposals have attracted no objections from any of the external or internal consultees in relation to highways, the railway, flood risk and drainage, open space, recreation and leisure, ecology or landscape. In addition to the policy compliant 25% affordable housing provision, financial contributions equating to around £1.75 million will be secured by the Council to be spent on improving local infrastructure to mitigate potential impacts of the development. The committee will know it's not possible to please all of the people all of the time, but we respectfully suggest that these proposals are, in the round, entirely acceptable and they will deliver social, economic and environmental benefits in accordance with your Borough Plan. Despite the difficult situation faced by this country, Taylor Wimpey remains committed to investing in the Borough Plan in the Borough and is keen to deliver the northern part of this allocation promptly. We therefore hope that the committee will endorse the clear and consistent officer recommendation to approve so that the development of new homes and open space can be delivered without further delay. And I would add, if anyone wants to ask me about the boundaries to the north, I'll happily answer questions.
Perfect timing, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any points of clarification to Mr. Williams? No? If not, we'll move back to the action item and Jackie, is there anything you need to respond to before we actually get something moved and seconded to what's been said?
If that's okay, yes please, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think it's your microphone that's a little bit crackly actually, because all the other speakers have been fine, but yeah, I can hear you, so it's okay.
Okay. In response to Mr. Castledine's speech that was read out, in terms of the density, as I said in my speech, we consider that the density is acceptable. It's within what we're saying within the concept plan, and national government are basically saying when we're releasing sites for development, it is essential to maximise those sites out. However, notwithstanding that, we obviously adhere to the residential design guide or the supplementary planning design document now in terms of distances. In terms of the woodland boundary to Severn Road, that was originally in there, but when it was assessed against the landscape character assessment, which is the main driver for the concept plan, it was shown on there that there was never mentioned on that eastern boundary in terms of a woodland boundary. In terms of the allotments, obviously, as I've said, we can't get anybody to take those on. And within the site, that could end up being just an antisocial behaviour. So it was taken from the parks team that the most appropriate action was having them increased on an existing viable site for people to use. In terms of the access to land, sorry, Councillor, in terms of the access to the land, it's not a planning issue for neighbouring landowners. I understood from the agent that there was never a right over the land in any case, but notwithstanding this, it's nothing to do with planning. It's not planning is not an access right to somebody else's lands. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed? Is that seconded?
Seconded, Chair.
Right, I've just said, yeah. Was that Councillor Shepherd?
Hocking.
Oh, right, okay. So, okay. Any member wish to make comment? No? In which case, Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Whereas I know some of the things I'm going to bring up here would have been dealt with, I still think that I should bring them up. One of my pet hates, as everybody will know, is single access estates, but I understand that Warwickshire County Council have had no objection for it being a single access estate. But the amount of hours that's going to be built on here, I can see huge problems, and I don't see why you've had to have a single access estate. But that being said, Warwickshire County Council haven't done anything. There's also on here, there'll be a lot of unadopted roads, so we'll have no say on the street lighting that goes on the unadopted roads. And also, what's been happening on new estates that have been built at the minute is because of the unadopted roads, the men are having trouble getting things out, so that's causing problems. And I see a lot of problems on this estate. Having said all that, other people have objections in, so I can see that we've got to go for it. So I just want to make my points known.
Is there any other member? No? In which case, the recommendation is as printed, which is to grant planning permission subject to legal agreement and conditions printed. When could I ask you to go through the list for the votes, please?
Yes, Chair. Please indicate for, against or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Gran.
Against.
Councillor Guthridge. Councillor Guthridge.
You need to unmute, councillor.
Against.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Pandey.
Against.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
Against.
Councillor Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
I make that approved, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think yeah, okay. That application is approved. Thank you. And if we can move on to item number 2, 99 Woodlands Road.
Okay, councillor, can you see my screen again?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. This proposal is for a full application for the erection of 9 dwellings at 99 Woodlands Road, Bedworth. The site is a fairly rectangular piece of land fronting Woodlands Road. It includes the domestic personage of 99 Woodlands Road, land to the side and land to the rear. The site is accessed by a relatively narrow track which widens to the side of number 99. Further in, the land is gated, which is a small area of hard stand with vehicular parking. To the north and east are agricultural fields. To the east and south, as well as within the site, is ridge and furrow. To the west is Woodlands Road and fields beyond. Woodlands Road is an arterial road with ribbon development of a mix of house types and ages. The feel of this area is for the transitional change from urban town to countryside. The nearby terraced housing, which fronts onto Woodlands Road, on numbers 91 to 97 Woodlands Road. Notwithstanding the 24 objections from 15 addresses, this application is presented to Planning Committee at the request of Councillor Kyle Evans. The key issues to assess in the determination are set out before you. In terms of the principle of residential development and impact to a non-designated heritage asset, the site forms a small part of the Borough Plan Strategic Housing Allocation, HSG4. The slideshow shows an extract from the concept plan with the proposed land uses, that's to the left of your screen, and so site outlined in red, and the other drawing is the wider HSG allocation within the application site blocked in red. The right hand side is the larger housing allocation all belonging to that part. The allocation as a whole is proposed to have around 689 dwellings and community facilities. Page 72 of your agenda shows the key development principles for the larger site. As this application is only for 9 dwellings and occupies only a relatively small peripheral part of the allocation, not all of the key development principles are relevant, especially as financial contributions can only be sought for 10 or more dwellings. Paragraph 7.53 of the Borough Plan states, all landowners see the value in working together to bring the site forward in a comprehensive and integrated manner. It is essential that landowners come to a voluntary agreement based on sharing the cost of off-site and on-site infrastructure requirements. However, the applicant has provided evidence that they have both attempted to correspond with other landowners in the HSG4 allocation. Both other parties have advised they are not willing to enter into discussions with the applicant or each other. Whilst this is disappointing, it is considered that it would be harsh to penalise the current applicant for the apparent lack of engagement of others. In terms of adherence to the Council's recently adopted concept plans, the application site is proposed within this to be mainly formal open space with a small part of the site to the north-east as residential. That's within the red line on the left hand is the peach or pink bit, whatever you want to call it. The slide shows the proposed uses within the concept plan and the area in brown, which is the ridge and furrow. The site is outlined in red on both of these plans. The reasons why the application site was proposed to be used as open space was to retain the ridge and furrow. This was driven by the heritage assessment the Council commissioned as part of the evidence base for the Borough Plan. The heritage assessment recognised the high quality ridge and furrow and stated this should be retained where possible. The concept plan mirrors this. Paragraph 197 of the NPPF and policy B4 of the Borough Plan states the need to protect non-designated heritage assets, which in this case is the ridge and furrow. The applicant has commissioned a site-specific, up-to-date report analysing the ridge and furrow, which concluded that the ridge and furrow remains were fragmentary and which have been truncated through the construction of Woodlands Road and the existing residential development. The assessment they carried out concluded that the quality of the ridge and furrow was considered to be a low score and were therefore not considered to be a non-designated heritage asset and did not warrant consideration against the heritage elements of the NPPF. Workshire Archaeology have been consulted on this specific application and have no objection subject to a condition requesting trail trenching. It is important to mention that the concept plan is adopted guidance and sets out that it should be viewed as fundamental principles for the site, and any significant differences in approach would need to be justified at the planning application stage, as is the case. In conclusion, whilst finding balance, it is considered that this up-to-date report, along with the Warwickshire County Council Archaeological team, means that the earlier advice for the Borough Plan and the concept plan is superseded, and the need to no longer retain this area as open space has been adequately justified. Pages 75 to 76 of your agenda gives a full breakdown of the residential assessment to existing properties. The neighbouring properties on the front of the site are 91, 95, 97 and 99. You can just see on the Google map on the top left hand side those houses and the site behind it. In brief, 95, 97 and 99 Woodlands Road have rear extensions and the Council's Sustainable Design and Construction SBD extension windows cannot be protected. Where there are original windows, the distance standards are met. The nearest new property is proposed to be a bungalow, which if I use the laser pointer is that one there. And it's considered that this, as well as its orientation, will mean any overlooking issues can be dealt with via a fence condition and will also not provide a sensible enclosure to the existing gardens. There's a light breach of 0.5 metres to the SBD within the scheme as plot 7, so which is shown there, is set further back than plot 6, which runs along its side boundary, so will have an impact on the rear of plot 6. Council's SBD will normally not see any more projection than 3 metres. The garages of plots 2 and 5 run along the boundaries of others within the development for 6 metres, so will provide some sense of enclosure to gardens. However, these are considered minor issues and there is an element of buyer beware, and refusal on this basis would be considered to be unjustified. In terms of the visual amenity of the development, as stated, the pattern of properties in the area is largely wooden development and the new properties will be different to this. However, the proposal will only be seen from the road when immediately in front of the site. An existing hedge is to be retained and could be conditioned for its retention, although obviously as hedges can die back, this could not be considered a permanent feature. It is considered the site is large enough to provide its own cohesive development, and there are such developments along Woodlands Road at Missing Oak Close and Dove Close. There are traditional elements within the design with brick detailing, bow windows and gabled features including 2 bungalows. In conclusion, the proposal is considered to only have a limited effect on visual amenity. Sorry, I'll just go back to that. Warwickshire Wildlife have objected because the site is not being proposed to be developed as in the larger strategic allocation, and its piecemeal development and concerns due to the existing vernacular and character of the area. However, as stated, the applicant has tried to work with the other landowners in this allocation and has failed, so it's considered to be unreasonable to refuse on this basis. In terms of ecology and habitat, Warwickshire Wildlife Trust requests the retention and maintenance of the hedgerows on the site for protected species and as a wildlife corridor. The hedges retention could be conditioned, but its maintenance would be an unreasonable condition. Bird and bat boxes and cladding that can aid bats and small birds are to be provided on the site, and the fencing is proposed to have gaps for hedgehogs. The ecology report submitted with the application concluded that the presence of bats for foraging and commuting and presence of small mammals and passing badgers were all low. Nests were recorded within the existing buildings could be dealt with via condition, and the provision of new bird and bat bricks would provide alternative nesting sites. There was only considered to be a small potential for reptiles and amphibians. However, nearby ponds do have great crested newts, so the site would require a further survey work and careful site clearance, but which could be covered via condition if members chose to approve the application. Warwickshire County Council highways have been consulted several times due to amended plans to try to overcome their objections, but still maintain their objection. The latest response was summed up in 3 issues, which included concerns with the lack of demonstration of visibility displays to the access, and how existing parking on Woodland Road affecting the access would be dealt with, and how the site will be serviced by refuse and recycling vehicles. They also had concerns with the visibility or width of some of the parking spaces within the site. Highways considered that previous site visits showed the vehicular speed in the area could be above the speed limit and that the road was busy at certain times of the day. The application has been ongoing since September 2019. The applicant has continued to try to resolve these issues and has sent further information after the agenda was printed. This latest information attempts to address the highways concerns that the plans were potentially inaccurate in terms of the existing road. The applicant consultant clarified that a survey of the road had been carried out and the plans were indeed accurate to this. The applicant's consultant also considered that the speed survey they took was not flawed and best practice and concluded that speed was not largely of a concern and averaged just over 30 miles an hour at between 33.5 to 41.4 miles per hour, and even then that the access could accommodate visibility displays suitable for 36 miles per hour northbound and 46.4 miles per hour southbound. The report also stated that whilst pedestrian visibility was desired to have an X distance at junctions of 2 metres, that the absolute minimum recommended was 1.5, and that the site can maintain 1.5, which they consider acceptable due to the narrow width of the existing pavement, and due to the fact that the development would only provide light traffic on the access. Pedestrian visibility was updated on the drawings provided. The second issue they addressed was the parking on Woodlands Road and the impact this would have on refuse and recycling vehicles entering and leaving the site. They illustrated that as parked cars tend to park partly on the pavement, that there was adequate manoeuvring, albeit the refuse and recycling vehicles having to use the opposite side of the carriageway for a short way, and that there had been no previous accidents reported in the area. In addition, they stated that the road would be built to adoptable standards suitable for servicing and emergency vehicles to enter and manoeuvre within the site, and that it met the Road Safety Audit Stage 1. And they therefore considered that the internal layout was suitable and safe. They addressed the issues with 2 of the parking spaces on the site as being at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, and so manoeuvring would be acceptable. Highways previously considered that some of the issues could be resolved via an additional joint site visit, but that they were not carrying out site visits at this time due to the pandemic. No further comments have been received from Highways within the time the agenda was for printing. Therefore, members could choose to defer the application to give the applicant further opportunities to address these if they so wished. Consequently, despite the several attempts at overcoming the Highways objection, it is not considered that it has been adequately demonstrated that the scheme would not have a severe impact on highway safety to the severe detriment to highway safety, which is contrary to the MPPF and HS2 of the Borough Plan. The site is located in flood zone 1, which statistically the least likely to flood, and therefore the Environment Agency were not consulted. Rochester County Council Flood Risk Management Team were consulted, and their original objections to the scheme were removed after updated details were sent, and subject to a condition that detailed surface water drainage scheme must be submitted via a condition. In terms of obligations, the scheme was originally for over 10 dwellings, so the relevant bodies were consulted in relation to 106 contributions. However, since then, the amount of dwellings has been reduced to below the threshold on which 106 contributions can be requested in accordance with national policy, so therefore we can't require them. In conclusion, it's considered that there are benefits to the scheme, including the rate given to the provision of housing towards the 5 years housing land supply on an allocated site, which gives weight to the proposal, and that visual and residential amenity would be minimal, as with the impact to the region furrow, ecology, biodiversity and flood risk. However, there is an outstanding objection from the Highways Authority, which to date the agent has not managed to resolve. Therefore, on balance, whilst there are clear considerations which give weight in favour of the proposal, it is considered that the potential for severe impact on highway safety and the harm that creates outweighs these positive points, and the recommendation is therefore of refusal on the grounds printed within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself then. Our first speaker is Councillor Evans.
Yes, can you hear me, Chair?
We can.
Very good. Thank you. Yes. I would ask councillors on the committee this evening to consider voting in favour of the officer recommendation, which is to refuse this application on the grounds specified within the report. First of all, I believe it's hard to compare Missing Oak Lane to this application. Missing Oak Lane is a parcel of land between 2 existing properties. This application is not. I object to the application for the following reasons. On the 15th of July, at full council, members decided to vote in favour of adopting the supplementary planning documents for policy HSG4 within the Borough Plan. Within these documents, it included the concept plans for the site. The land that this application lies on is designated clearly as a formal open space, including playing fields, within the concept plans. This can be found on page 26 of the supplementary planning documents for HSG4. Whilst I object to these concept plans at full council, a decision has been made, and we now need to stick with what's been proposed within them. The proposed formal open space within the concept plan, which happens to be on this piece of land, would provide a natural space between the existing conurbation and new dwellings which may be built on the fields next to this application which have been earmarked for housing. The report presented to full council last month regarding these plans stated, and I quote page 55, supplementary planning documents provide more detailed advice and guidance in relation to the implementation and interpretation of certain planning policies with the aim of delivering sustainable development. SPDs do not form part of the development plan for the borough, but and this is the important part, but they are a material consideration when determining planning applications. Based on this, I would urge councillors to vote with the officer recommendation, which is to refuse, based on the grounds that this application does not adhere to the policies as set out in supplementary planning documents for HSG4. I think it would be somewhat hypocritical for councillors to approve the application if they actually vote in favour of the SPDs at full council. I also support the recommendation from the Warwickshire Highways Authority. They state within their report, and I quote, Woodlands Road is a rat run. And I'd also like to make that any road safety audits which are being conducted by either the applicant or Highways will not be a true reflection of the current situation on Woods Road due to COVID-19 and due to the fact that children are not at school at the moment. I'd also like to make the point that if the application is approved, I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Evans. Are there any points of clarification? No? Okay, if we can move on to the public statement from Mr. Mayor. Wendy, are you going to be reading that out, please?
Yes, Chair.
Are you going to be reading that out, please?
I fully support officers' recommendation for refusal of this application. Without repeating things from this report, I would like to highlight certain points within it. Point one. This application will make no contribution financially to the Borough Plan key development principles. Point two. On page 74, it states the applicant commissioned a site-specific and up-to-date report by Cotswold Archaeology, who deemed the site to score low regards ridge and furrow. I feel that given the applicant in 2019 sent in two tractors to plough up the medieval ridge and furrow and rip out part or cut back existing hedgerows during bird nesting season, makes Cotswold Archaeology null and void. The Council should certainly not be using it as evidence going forward in line with the concept plans and future considerations for HSG4. I have emailed evidence of this barbaric act with plans at NBC if needed. The whole HSG4 site, including this application, needs an independent archaeology survey trench dug. Certainly, what is actually left of it, before any more is just sacrificed by developers brutally. Point 3. The refusal from WCC Highways Department are fully justified and go into much more detail than I ever could. No doubt the developer will say that they can be overcome given more time. How they can overcome street parking from houses directly opposite the proposed site entrance is totally impossible, especially given the width of Woodlands Road there. If any councillor tonight is going to actually vote against officer's recommendation, I suggest you look into arranging a site visit first to look at the road and the entrance of the proposal. Councillors also thinking of voting against recommendations should also take a look and take into account page 82.31, which clearly states that the highway plans as they stand would be severe detrimental impact on highway safety. Something no one would want to put their name to if, God forbid, it's passed and an accident happened in the future. Point 4. If the applicant argues tonight the usual, we will if refused go to appeal, I say let them, and NBC should hire a barrister like they did for the local plan examination. Reasons for refusal: number 1, the council has a 5-year land supply and local plan which should prevent further greenfield development. Number 2, Highways have objected, paragraph 109 of the NPPF. Number 3, it's not part of the council's own concept plans policy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And now we have Nicola Lee on behalf of Cartwright Homes. Nicola,
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Lovely. Many thanks for allowing me to speak this afternoon regarding our planning application at 99 Roads Road. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nicola Lee, and I'm the land manager at Cartwright Homes. My primary role is to work on development science and to bring forward residential development. So on that note, I've been heavily involved in the work that's gone into this application. As you know, this parcel of land forms part of a wider allocated site known as HG4 within the Nuneaton Bedworth local plan. So there is already a presumption in favour of development on this land. Initially, there were a number of objections raised by the consultees at this application, primarily from the policy team and Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council, but also from the local flood authority and Warwickshire Highways. However, we have successfully worked with Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council and the local flood authority to overcome their concerns. However, as you know, from what's been said today, Highways is still voicing an objection on Highways grounds. Hence the reason this application is before you this afternoon with the recommendation to refuse planning. However, I wanted to speak to you this afternoon to advise your current stance regarding this one and only outstanding objection. As of the 11th of August, the Highways concerned with those relating to access and visibility, the parking along Woodlands Road, and the refuse and recycling collections. Following these concerns, we have submitted further information to the Highways Department for review, which overcame these issues. A further response was received from the Highways Department, which had a new list regarding the reasons for objection, which included that no safety audit had accompanied the application, carriageway width, visibility displays, and comments at the internal layout. All of this new list had been dealt with and overcome back in July, and the Planning Committee all of this new list had been dealt with and overcome back in July, and for the Planning Committee's information, a Stage 1 road safety audit was submitted to Warwickshire Council in January 2020 before the pandemic, and has been reviewed by the authority's road safety team, which included the internal layout and the conclusions of the audit raised no concerns. So it's just now beggars belief we seem to be going around in circles from a Highways point of view. It is my view that the Highways Department are clutching at straws as to find valid reasons for refusal. It's also hugely frustrating that matters that we believe have been sorted are now being raised as concerns again, as it seems that the Highway Authority are unable to follow their own paper trail. It is in my view that there are no valid reasons to refuse this application, and any refusal would unlikely to be upheld by an inspector if this were to go to an appeal. However, it is your decision as the Planning Committee to make this final decision on this. Cartwright Homes are a local builder building individual homes for local people. We're not a volume house builder. We've worked hard to try and produce a scheme that is of good quality and ticks all boxes on the planning front. It is therefore massively frustrating to be sitting in front of you, knowing that the only objection has been dealt with, but the Highways Department still seem to be voicing concerns over this and have not been able to obviously come back to the Planning Department in a timely manner. Thank you for your time this evening. If you have any questions, please do ask.
Okay, thank you. Are there any points of clarification? No, in which case, can I move the recommendation as printed, which is to refuse planning permission for the reasons as printed? Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Who was that?
Me, Councillor Graham.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Graham. Any member wish to speak? Councillor Grant, is that your hand to speak or from seconding?
It's my hand to speak, Chair.
Okay, if you want to go ahead then, thank you.
Thank you very much. I recommend that we support the officer's recommendations tonight in voting against the application. As Councillor Evans and one of my residents, Palme, has said, this road is very unsuitable to access, even for 9 houses. It feels like we get a lot of 9 house applications just manage to avoid contributions, but that's beside the case. It goes against the Borough Council's own planning policies regarding the HG4 site, which is within the adopted Borough Plan, regarding how I personally feel about the plan itself. That is our policy. So I think that this is a test of that to support this application would set a terrible precedent in future and mean that the Borough Plan, which took so long to be made policy in the first place, is practically worthless. And we've also got the highways objections. We've had a year to sort this out. If it was possible to reconcile all of the problems with the 90 degrees point of access onto Woodlands Road, a very busy road with poor visibility for any vehicle would be backing out of there, then it would have happened by now. So I think we've got enough today, Chair, to support the officer's recommendations for refusal. And if it does come to an appeal, I'd happily go as a councillor of the area to speak on in support of the Borough Council's decision, if that's what we make tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any other member wishes to speak? No? In which case, Wendy, can I ask you to move on to the voting list, please?
Yes, Chair. Please indicate for, against or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Guthridge.
For.
Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Pandir.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
For.
Councillor Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Chair, that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. The application is refused. Thank you. Move on to item 3, please, to the Contamination Avenue.
Okay, just sharing my screen again.
Okay.
Can you just confirm that you can see that?
Yes, yeah, we can see it.
The proposal is for a 2-storey extension to the front, side and rear and a new roof over the whole dwelling, which is turned 90 degrees from the original roof. The plans also show the driveway to be extended, however, permeable material is to be used, so this element does not require planning permission. The applicant's property is a 2-storey detached house with a pitched roof built in the 1970s. The plans of the existing house, the elevations are shown on that slide there. It's a typical design of that era and occupies a regular shaped plot. There's a variety of house types and designs within the area. You can see some of the properties in the photo. The applicant's property is the one with the green garage door. To the rear are properties on Barn Close. There have been 2 objections from 2 addresses, and there was originally a petition of 8 addresses of 13 signatories, but 7 properties withdrew their objection. The key issues to assessing the determination are the impact on visual amenity, design, and the impact on residential amenity. The impact on visual amenity, guidance for visual amenity and residential amenity is taken from the recently adopted Sustainable Design and Construction SPD. The slide shows the existing house elevations by the side of the proposed elevations of the same elevations. The front and side extensions and alterations to the roof will be visible from the street, but the proposal will still not project in front of the 2 neighbouring residential properties and is well set back from the road. The design materials proposed are in keeping with the area, and it's considered that the visual amenity is acceptable. In terms of the residential amenity impact, the proposal will impact on the 2 neighbours either side, which are 31 and 35 Copsford Avenue. Obviously, you can see those quite clearly there. The properties on the opposite side of the road, which you can't see on there, but you can see on the location plan, and the property to the rear, which is 30 Barn Close. The slide shows the proposed extensions at 33 and the existing extensions on the surrounding properties. I've tried to colour code them to make it as simple as possible. The darker blue are two-storey extensions, and the lighter blue are single-storey extensions. The green is a proposed first floor extension as part of this application. In relation to 31, so Cotswold Avenue, this property has been extended, as you can see on that dark blue, 2 storeys to the side closest to the applicant's property, and which also extends beyond part of the original rear. None of the side windows are original or considered to be habitable. An assessment has shown that the proposal will not impact on any original front or rear facing habitable windows. The proposed extension finishes in line with this neighbour's own extension, so it's considered that there will be no impact to rear private amenity space. So it's considered that there will be no detrimental impact on this property. In relation to 35, the other neighbour to the side, this also has a 2-storey extension to the rear, meaning none of the windows to the rear are original, so they cannot be protected. There's an original side window to this property, but this is already impacted by the existing side of the applicant's property, and the extension will have no more of an impact to that fact already. Assessing the front original windows indicates that none will be infringed by the proposal. In reference to the impact to this neighbour's rear garden, the proposal will project approximately 2.8 metres from the nearest part of this neighbour's rear elevation. So just showing there, the single storey element proposed projects a little bit more than this neighbour. Local guidance considers that up to 3 metres projection is acceptable for 2 storeys and 4 metres for a single storey extension. So it's considered that the proposal complies with our guidance in relation to this property. In relation to number 42 and 44 across the road, these are obviously on the other side of the road and 27 metres away. Our guidance is that there should be a distance of 20 metres, so this is therefore well met. In regards to the impact of 30 Bond Close, which is to the rear, the neighbouring property has a single-storey rear extension. There is a separation distance between the rear elevation of the 2-storey proposal and the original rear of number 30 Bond Close of 19.2 metres. The Sustainable Design Guide states there should be a minimum distance of 20 metres from window to window. However, it's considered that it would be unreasonable to refuse permission in relation to this property for a shortfall of 800 millimetres. The agent has actually advised that due to the angle of the 2 properties, from the actual window to the window position, it's nearer to 19.4 metres. In relation to the impact of private amenity space, there is a distance of 9 metres from the proposed new first floor rear windows and the boundary of this property. Our guidance is a minimum distance of 7 metres in terms of overlooking, and this is therefore met. Therefore, whilst there's no doubt there will be an impact to this property, it is considered acceptable. There are 2 roof lights to the proposal, but the window sills of these are to be 3 metres from the finished floor level of the room they provide, so will provide no overlooking from out of them. In terms of highway safety, the proposal is still to be a family home, and there is room for several cars on the front drive, and which the area for parking is being increased. In conclusion, the proposed extensions are considered to not have a detrimental impact on residential amenity of the surrounding neighbours or visual amenity of the surrounding area or on highway safety. The proposed extensions is therefore considered acceptable, and approval is recommended subject to the conditions as printed on the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Jackie. Wendy, if you could please read out the statement from Mr. Taylor, the agent.
Yes, Chair. Mr. Chairman, councillors, I speak as agent for my clients and support the application. Officers of the Borough Council give their full recommendation to support Planning Commission, and there are no objections raised to the development by any of the Council's statutory consultees. The plans have been developed for our client's specific family needs. Our client has 3 children, and an elderly mother who they have living in the existing household. We have developed a plan so the family can have their own rooms, and we have formed a small office area for my client's use when at home and wishing to carry out some office work. We have worked with the officers to develop a plan which is acceptable and fully supported by your officers. With the application receiving your officer's support and recommendation, we respectfully ask members to follow the recommendation of their officers and support the grant of Planning Permission. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. That is the only statement on that one. So, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation, which is approval subject to conditions? Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Any member? No? In which case, Wendy, can you run the voting list, please?
Yes, Chair. Please indicate for, against or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Guttridge.
For.
Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Hocking. Councillor Hocking. I'll come back to Councillor Hocking.
Hang on. Sandy, you've got your hand up, is it? No, right.
No, sorry.
Carry on.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Pander.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
For.
Councillor Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tandy.
You're muted, Councillor.
For.
Thank you.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Thank you. Chair, that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. So that application is approved unanimously. We move on to item number 4, please.
Great. I'm doing this on screen. Have you got that up?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you. Sorry, I was just reading something on chat, but I think Councillor Hocking is back with us. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Item 4. 31 to 33 Collyhurst House. This application is for a single-storey extension to create a further 2 additional bedrooms with en-suites to the rear of this property. Nuneaton Road, Bedworth. Collyhurst House is a care home for the elderly and currently has 34 rooms. The building has been substantially extended throughout the years, including buildings to the rear. There is a large car park for the home to the rear of Iron Undercroft. There have been 5 objections from 5 addresses. The comments are summarised below. The site is already overdeveloped. The septic tank is of concern for noise and smell impacts, overcrowding of the communal spaces. The key issues to assess and determination of the application are impact on residential amenity, impact on visual amenity, impact on highway safety, and obviously conclusion. The closest residential neighbour to the development site is 29 Nuneaton Road, but this neighbour is located to the south of, on the opposite side of the building to the location of the proposed extension. So the proposal will not be visible from this property, so will have no impact on the light, privacy or aspect. That's 29 there, and which would be here, shown on the laser, and that's where the extension is proposed. To the north and northeast is 1, 2, and 4 Newman Close. You can just see it on the location plan there. All 3 of these properties are over 20 metres from the proposed extension, so it meets the window-to-window distance within the Council's Sustainable Design and Construction (SBD), which is considered acceptable for protecting privacy. Similarly, neighbours to the rear along Orchard Street are also well over the 20 metres guidance away, so complies with this guidance. A dining room window within the home will lose its views as the new wall is to be 2.6 metres away. Similarly, the proposal will only be 1.69 metres from a bedroom window in the main building, so it will have an impact to views from this bedroom. It will also exacerbate views from the bedroom on the floor below, which already looks onto the retaining wall, but obviously the height will be increased by the new building. Those rooms I'm referring to is the dining room is there and the bedroom windows are around about there, and there is a bedroom window below on a separate floor. You can just make out the bedroom window there, and this is where the extension is proposed. Whilst these views from these bedrooms will be impacted upon, as the applicant is choosing to do this to these rooms, it is considered that officers couldn't refuse on this basis. A conservatory with a pitched roof has already been approved in roughly the same position, although this was slightly further away from these bedrooms at 3.6 metres away, but had a pitched roof, which meant the impact could be worse. The proposed extension is considered a small-scale addition to the site, providing extra facilities. In relation to concerns about the use of a septic tank, the agent has confirmed that this was incorrectly stated on the application form, and drainage is via an underground pumping chamber below the car park. This existing pumping chamber pumps sewage to 7 Trent drains within the road. This, as I say, is existing, and a pump is required because the existing site is lower by approximately 2 metres to the road, so there is no adequate natural fall for the existing drains. Therefore, the issues raised by the objectors in relation to noise and smoke from a septic tank is not quite accurate. In conclusion, it's considered that the residential to neighbouring properties is acceptable. In terms of impact to visual amenity, the proposed extension is located on the rear of the property and is not visible from the Nuneaton Road. The proposed materials are to match existing, and the proposed flat roof is mirrored on other parts of the building. The visual impact is therefore considered acceptable. On these elevations here, that's the existing, and obviously where it shows brickwork, that's the proposal. In relation to the impact on highway safety and parking, Warwickshire County Council highways have no objection. Previous parking guidance indicated that 1 parking space should be provided per 4 residents, and therefore the extra parking would effectively be only half the space, which is negligible and will not cause severe impact on traffic movements, and in any case the car park is relatively large for the home. Therefore highway safety is not considered an issue. In conclusion, it's considered that the proposal will not have any detrimental impact on residential or visual amenity to surrounding properties or on highway safety. The recommendations, therefore, are for approval subject to conditioning the proposed drawings. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Wendy, we have a public statement from Mr. and Mrs. Fleming. If you could read that out, please.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
We refer to the above application and wish to lodge our strong objections. We ask that this application be referred to the full committee and that a site visit take place before any decision is made. We would ask the planning officer to look at the planning history of this property. This is merely the latest attempt by the applicant to develop the property. Many earlier applications were rejected overwhelmingly by the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council Planning Committee following a hearing and a site visit. There have been numerous appeals, including to the Planning Inspectorate, all of which have been rejected, and this has been a distressing feature of our lives for far too long, in what should have been a peaceful retirement. The planning portal contains details of 13 applications and resubmissions, and that is not all of them. My wife and I are the occupants of 29 Nuneaton Road and will therefore be directly affected by the proposal at the property. We are pensioners. We are both retired and spend the majority of our time at home. Attempts to develop this property date back to 1987. That is over 33 years. If the application is allowed, it will permit a further development of an already overdeveloped site, something which was accepted by Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council as long ago as 1990. The latest application is for 2 additional bedrooms and en-suites. The plans suggest that these will be built in the place where the applicant already has planning permission for a conservatory. Whilst we did not object to that application, as it would have been an additional amenity for the existing residents, we do object to the addition of 2 additional bedrooms and en-suites. In particular, point 1, they would be 2 additional residents with no additional communal space, which will lead to overcrowding. Point 2, the additional rooms will add to an already overdeveloped site, something the council accepted some 30 years ago. Point 3, the 2 additional bedroom and ensuite bathrooms will have foul drainage going into a septic tank. As far as we're aware, there is no septic tank on site at present, and the inevitable noise and smell when installing and emptying a new septic tank will detract from the quiet enjoyment of our property. Point 4, the fact that the applicant has not asked that the en-suites drain to the public sewer suggests they know that the property is already at the limit of what the infrastructure can support. As before, we consider the only way of properly understanding the site and how any further development will seriously impinge upon quiet enjoyment of our property is by a site visit, and we would ask that such a visit be arranged. It's important that the Planning Office see the site from our property. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Right, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation? Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Any member wish to speak? If not, I'll just make a couple of points myself. From my recollection, when we last had an application on this site, at that point, I did say that the site had reached its capacity then, and I believe that now. I think it is an over-intensive development of this site, and it's resulting in a lack of amenity space. There's very little amenity space for residents there. And as the statement said from Mr. and Mrs. Fleming, there was going to be a conservatory on this piece of land, and that would have helped the amenity of the present residents. Clearly, this will take away and add 2 more occupants to the site. So, I mean, if members go along with this today, I actually think this is the maximum that this site can be developed. They may well see the car parking area perhaps in the future, but there's limited on-road parking in this one. It does go way back in time. I remember when they wanted it built as a hardware shop before it became a sheltered home. So it does beg some concern, and certainly Mr. and Mrs. Fleming have had considerable disruption over the years, and I don't think it would be appropriate for any more in the future. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I remember all history on this going way back when it was under the old system, when it first started to come forward. And I've got to agree with Councillor Hancock's. I'm minded to approve this application, but a line's got to be drawn in the sand. It can't be allowed to keep extend, and then extend. And that's what's been happening over a number of years. So I certainly I'll go along with the officer's recommendation on this occasion. But if it comes before us again for another extension, then I'll have to look at that application, obviously, and listen to what the officers are going to say. But you know, I don't know what I can't see how they can keep extending it the way they have been. So on this occasion, I will vote in favour of the application. But I've got to be quite honest, I don't know what I'll do in the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tandy? You need to unmute, Councillor Tandy.
Yeah.
That's it. We've got you.
Right. I did try twice, Chair, and it came back on. I've looked very carefully at the planning history of this application, and I really do have some serious concerns. And I wonder how long, and you said it yourself, Chair, that you said previously when an application came forward, that you wonder how many more times applications would come forward. So I have some serious concerns as to how many times that could happen again because of the recommendation that we have before us. I am seriously concerned about the lack of recreational area within the home, and I hear, I'm not an engineer, I hear the concerns of the neighbours in relation to having a septic tank quite close, possibly to their properties. So I'm going to have a bit more of a think about it before we take the vote, Chair, but I do have some serious concerns that enough is enough.
Okay, thank you. I'll get Jackie to confirm it, but my understanding is the agent actually ticked the wrong box about a septic tank, and there isn't a septic tank going to be put on the site, or there's not even one existing one. Jackie, could you just tell me whether I'm right or wrong on that, please?
Yes, thank you. The agent did come back and confirm it isn't a septic tank, ticked the wrong box on the form, and it's purely just pump underground there to get the existing sewerage up. So nothing will change to what's existing in terms of the sewerage.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other member wish to speak that has already done so? No? In which case, Wendy, can I ask you to move to the voting list, please?
Yes, Chair. Please indicate for, against or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Gran.
Against.
Councillor Guthridge.
Against.
Councillor Hancocks.
Against.
Councillor Hocking.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Sander.
Against.
Councillor Rudkin.
Against.
Councillor Sargent.
Against.
Councillor Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Chair, the recommendation there is for refusal. You'll need to set out the reasons.
Okay. The recommendation hasn't been approved, so we need something else forward. In which case, can I move that the application is reviewed on the over-intensive nature of the development and the loss of amenity space on that area. Is that seconded? I just want to confirm with the officers that is an acceptable reason for review that could be defended.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it's a reasonable one. There is no meeting space as such there at the moment, but as I say, there would have been conservatory was also approved, although obviously couldn't consist of that built.
Okay, thank you. Does any member wish to make any comment on this? No. In which case we'll move to the vote again. Wendy, please.
Yes, Chair, please indicate for, against, or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Guthridge.
For.
Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
Against.
Councillor Pander. Councillor Pander. Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
For.
Councillor Shepherd. For. Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
Councillor Pander.
Against.
That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That carried refusal on those grounds. Thank you very much. We can move on to item number 5, please. Which is the old Vicarage of Bulkington.
Okay, can you see my screen, Chair?
Yes, it's there, Jackie, thank you.
Okay. The application seeks approval for an already built single-storey rear extension built off the back of a previously approved and now built gymnasium. This latest extension is flat roofed. You just go to the there. The extension that we're discussing at the moment is this one here. This part there had previously approval and has now been built. The application site is an 8-bedroom detached dwelling to the rear of the vicarage and church. The property is set well back from the road, accessed off a side road. The dwelling is finished in white render and has ample parking and forms a unique dwelling in the area. To the west of the site is Bulkington Sports Pavilion. To the northeast are the rear gardens of bungalows at 1 to 4 Barbridge Close. Those are those just up there. The extension backs onto these rear gardens of these properties, but is not visible due to a laurel hedge, which is taller than the flat roofed extension. This hedge provides privacy to all the properties. To the south is the vicarage and southwest is the church ground 16 metres away from the boundary of the site. There has been one responsive objection from one address and a petition of 8 signatories from 6 addresses. The comments are summarised as nuisance with the hedge which overhangs other properties and cannot be trimmed from the applicant's garden due to the extension. Proposal is too close to boundary fence. 2 extensions already built on the property, causing noise and loss of privacy. Already noise issue from the property causing mental stress and lack of privacy. Extension was put up without planning permission. The key issues to assess in the determination of this application are the impact on residential amenity, impact on visual amenity, impact on highway safety and conclusion. In terms of the impact on residential amenity, It's this building here that we're referring to there. My arrows are showing visually where the shots are being taken from. And again, this is the extension that we're now discussing. The Council's Sustainable Designers Construction Supplementary Planning document has been used to assess the impact of residential amenity for neighbouring properties. The extension, as I say, is shown in red on both the proposed drawing on screen and the location plan. The blue is a hipped roof property. That's that part there. We just go back just to show you. This is an existing extension that's been approved, and as I say, that is the extension. That is what was previously approved and built, and this is the extension there. The proposal has no impact on the church or vicarage, as it's on the opposite side of the existing dwelling. In relation to the impact on 1 to 4 Barbridge Close, in the interest of protecting aspect and light, the design guide states that single-storey extensions with blank elevations must be at least 12 metres from neighbours' original habitable facing windows. In this instance, the single-storey extension faces directly opposite the rear windows of 1 and 2 Barbridge Close, and measuring using the council's mapping system shows it is only 10 metres away. So there's a shortfall of 2 metres to the guidance. The extension is flat roof, so the impact is not as severe as that if it had been a higher pitch roof. The elevation on the bottom left shows the hipped games room that was previously approved and built, and the flat roof area that the present application relates to. The drawings show the height of a 2.4 metre fence. Fences are normally 1.8 metres, but can be up to 2 metres without requiring planning permission, and shows the overall height of the extension to the top of the flat roof to be 2.9 metres. Go back to the photos. The extension, as I say, is shown on red on there. You will note the laurel hedge on the photos, which is taller than the extension. Here it is there. You can see it better from a distance, towering over it there. And as you can see, the extension is currently obscured from the bungalows by that laurel hedge. However, hedgerows can die or be removed, and therefore cannot be used as a reason for accepting such a significant shortfall of 2 metres. And if the hedgerow was not in place, the extension could be detrimental to the residential amenity of these neighbouring properties, to the windows in terms of sense of enclosure and to the garden. The extension is not visible from the street scene and uses the same materials as the existing house, and therefore the visual impact of the street scene is not affected. In terms of impact on highway safety, the proposal is to be ancillary to the existing house and therefore will not increase parking at the property, which in any case provides more parking than most houses. And Warwickshire County Council Highways renewed their objection when it was confirmed that it was for private use ancillary to the property. In conclusion, the extension does not obviously impact on highway safety. The development is considered to relate satisfactorily to the original property and will not be detrimental to visual amenity or highway safety. While there are objections, the majority of these concerns are related to the overgrown bushes and noise concerns. The Council's tree officer and environmental health did not raise any issues. However, there would be demonstrable harm to the residential amenity to the rear-facing windows of 1 and 2 Barbridge Close if the hedge was removed or died. As there is a shortfall of 2 metres in the distance from the windows of these neighbouring properties to the extension, which is contrary to the local design guidance. It is noted that the impact is minimised due to the flat roof, but on balance, the 2 metres of infringement is relatively large, and refusal is therefore recommended due to the detrimental impact to surrounding properties, and as annotated on your agenda, pages 137 and 138. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have one public statement from Mr. Minhas. Wendy, if you'd like to read that out, please.
Yes, Chair. I note from the agenda for the meeting of the 25th August 2020 that the above proposal is recommended for refusal. I am the applicant in this matter and would submit as follows. Number 1. The application is for a home gym in a single family residence, albeit that the residence is larger than the average home in the area. Point 2. The application is recommended for refusal on the following grounds. The proposal is contrary to this policy in that the single-storey rear extension could have a significant impact on the rear-facing windows of numbers 1 and 2 Barbridge Close if the existing boundary landscaping was removed or dyed. The blank elevation of the single-storey extension is directly opposite these windows and in close proximity to them. This could be detrimental to the residential amenity of these neighbouring properties if the boundary landscaping was removed. The distance is contrary to guidelines contained in paragraph 11.7 of the Council's Sustainable Design and Construction Supplementary Planning Document 2020. Whilst I accept the blank elevation is within the guideline 12 metres of the windows of 1 to 2 Barbridge Close, by my measurements the distance is actually 11.2 metres, not the stated 10 metres. Furthermore, the blank wall is 1.3 metres away from the boundary line, which is marked by a close boarded fence 2 metres high and a thick laurel hedge 3.5 metres high on my side. The hedge is such that its height is above the height of the blank wall and masks it completely. The application should not be considered on the basis of there being no such fence or hedge as put forward by the planning officer, given that the hedge, in one form or another, and fence, have been in situ for nearly 40 years, and there will always be a need for a boundary of similar size and nature to maintain the privacy and residential amenities of not only my property, but also 1 and 2 Barbridge Close. Indeed, it's quite normal for planning consent to be subject to conditions that expressly define the boundary treatments in the form of hedgerow or landscaping. Hence, I cannot see why this boundary, as it is, should not be treated the same manner and its retention and maintenance be expressed as a condition of any approval. It is true that hedges and trees die, but that is also true that conditions can be put in place to ensure they are maintained. I am even prepared to have this included as a restrictive covenant on the title deeds in favour of the residents of 1 and 2 Barbridge Close. Point 2. I have had 2 visits from planning officers, and they both gave the indication that the structure would be one that the council would be likely to approve. Under normal circumstances, there would have been communication between your planning officers and my agent, and the issues would be resolved before committee. However, in these unprecedented times, there has been no such communication because of the lockdown initially and now social distancing.
I'm going to let you finish, Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. This was further compounded by the death of my agent from COVID-related issues during the lockdown. I and your officers were not aware until recently of this. Point 3. I also asked if there were any issues that needed addressing, or if any objections needed addressing. The only one I was made aware of related to a highway concern, and I dealt with it promptly. At no point was I made aware that other objections and comments had been received. Under normal circumstances, I would have been able to have access to these by visiting the town hall. I cannot see where these have been made available to me prior to the notice of inclusion in the agenda for the 25th of August, received by email on the 20th of August. Point 4. I am now having to, at the 11th hour, address you without representation nor professional capacity. Point 5. I would ask in the first instance that you defer the decision, make a site visit and assess for yourself the actual impact on residential amenity that the structure will have. The fence and hedge treatment should be imposed as explicit conditions for any approval, and even maintenance of the hedge to a defined height. I would point out that if the fence, hedge and blank wall referred to were not in place, a very similar blank wall, just 3 metres back further, with a large bifold door, would instead be the view for the residents of Barbridge Close. I truly believe that a site visit will enable committee members to better assess the structure and step away from the guidance without creating a precedent. Point 6, I will work with your officers and will explore alternative treatments of the blank wall, including but not limited to wood cladding to soften the look of the wall, a living wall system, a wall broken up by obscured non-opening glazing. I will also consider a substantial alteration to the structure and set back the blank wall further from the boundary if necessary. Point 5. I also put forward that an independent chartered landscape architect be engaged at my own expense to carry out a residential visual amenity assessment and a wider residential amenity study, if this would assist the committee to arrive at the most appropriate decision. Point 6. I note the varied work of the committee and ask that the same flexibility in terms of application of guidance is afforded to the smaller works that is obviously afforded to the larger but necessary developments within the borough. I think it is not appropriate for me to address other comments by my neighbours through this forum, other than once again to apologise for any inconvenience caused through past works. The old vicarage is an old building which has needed much care and attention to retain it and keep it habitable. May I also add that the officers were very professional during their visits. I truly believe that COVID has perhaps forced the planning officers collectively to make a recommendation without seeking an alternative resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. We have a recommendation in front of us, which is to refuse planning permission for the reasons as printed. Can I, to enable debate to take place, move that recommendation? Is that seconded? Okay, thank you, Councillor Rookin. Any member? Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think there was very reasonable things that was put forward by the applicant there. I can't bring myself to vote with the officers on this because the distance is taken from their computer or whatever, with a laurel edge in place. I think the living wall that was put forward by the applicant would be an excellent idea if there was to ever be a laurel edge taken away. It doesn't seem that bad of an extension to me, so I can't really bring myself to vote with the officers on this. I think there's other things that could be put in place to see this go forward, so that's all I need to say.
Okay, any other member wish to speak? No? If not, the recommendation is to refuse planning. I've almost got to the end of my sentence. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I'd raised my hand earlier. It's just really a question to follow on from Councillor Watkins' statement. Perhaps the officer can come back to me and clarifying this. The council's mapping system, I'm presuming, is based on Ordnance Survey map detail, which in an urban area like Bulkington would be mapped at 1 to 1250 scale. So it's got an accuracy tolerance of 0.75 of a metre in either direction, depending on where it's measured from. And we're not clear whether any Ordnance Survey map feature that's taken on this is the fence that's there, the centre line of the hedge, the laurel hedge. The Ordnance Survey would map the feature in what they consider to be the most prominent feature. And the boundary would be the fence, but that may not be the feature that's shown on the Ordnance Survey map. So we can't rely on the council's data if it's based on Ordnance Survey map detail at this point, and I think proper measurements need to be taken. So the basis for recommendation of refusal on the grounds that it's not 12 metres and it's only 10, it actually could be the variance. It could be 12 metres, but the tolerances of the Ordnance Survey mapping could be the reason why it appears on the face of it to be less than that. So, given that we've got a hedge that from the visuals appears to be at least 3 meters thick, plus a fence, I think we're not in a position to refuse on the basis of what could be questionable measurement based on the council's software, if it's based on Ordnance Survey map data. So I think we need the officer to come back to us and clarify that before we make a decision. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fair enough. Jackie, are you able to answer those points? Jackie, are you still with us?
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Did you hear those points from Councillor Brown?
Yes, I did. It is based on a mapping system. We can hone in on it quite a long way. It doesn't necessarily show hedges or anything. It shows actual boundaries. In terms of the technical data from that, Darren is more technically minded than me and has had more information with the GGP mapping system we've got. So I don't know whether Darren wants to add any more information.
Yeah, I can certainly try. Thanks, Chair, for bringing us in. Yeah, so it's the GGP system that we use is based on a combination of the Ordnance Survey data, but it's also using raster images, which are aerial images, so aerial photography in essence, to place the features onto the map. I don't suppose any systems are perfect, but it is a reasonable representation of the geography of the site. Without obviously the benefit of actually measuring on site, it's as good as you can get, and we're generally happy to make decisions based on it. I hope that answers your question, Councillor. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other member that's not already spoken? Councillor Brown, did you not put your hand down, or do you want to come back in?
Begging your pardon, Chair.
That's okay. Thank you. Okay. This is a member. I mean, I've just got a couple of points. I've got photos in relation to the piece that's been built, the application, against the head, and even the applicant made mention of the height of the head, but under planning we're not allowed to take that into account. Could be taken out of guide or whatever. And of course, any applicant has the right to appeal against the decision of this council, unlike we don't have a third right to appeal out the applicants. Okay, so the recommendation is to refuse planning permission for the reasons printed. Wendy, can you go through the list again, please?
Yes, Chair. Please indicate for, against, or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Graham.
Against.
Councillor Guthridge.
For.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Pandare.
Against.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
For.
Councillor Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
Chair, that's carried.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. That application is reviewed then, which takes us on to our, I believe, our last item of the evening. Number 3, Riverbrook.
Chair.
Yeah, just
I'm leaving the meeting, Chair.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready for me to start?
I am, thank you, Jackie.
This is works to remove a lime tree covered by a tree preservation order, TPO short. The tree is T1, Tree Preservation Order 1197. The tree is located in the rear garden of 3 Riverbrook. The applicant does not wish to provide a replacement tree. The tree is large and is visible from both the street scene and pingles to the side and the public park that continues to the other side of the railway embankment, which is to the rear of the gardens. This application has been reported to committee at the request of Councillor June Handy, who has emailed the case officer to support the removal of the tree. There is no previous history of any request for works to the tree, and there have been letters from neighbouring properties. The key access to assessing the determination is the impact on visual amenity. The tree, with a number of other trees in neighbouring gardens, was placed under a TPO in 1997. To create a TPO, the trees must be assessed as being an important landscape feature which offers significant amenities to the wider public. When assessing the tree for a TPO, the tree's public amenity or visibility to the public, its condition, age, remaining life expectancy, its function within the landscape, and ultimately its importance to the local environment has to be considered. The National Planning Practice Guidance on Tree Preservation Orders and Trees in Conservation Areas is that the local authority should assess the impact of the proposal on the amenity and whether the works are justified, having regard to the information put forward in the application form in support of any works. The TPO covers 5 lime trees, 4 of them located in the rear gardens of 3, 6, 8 and 11 Riverbrook. The tree at 8 Riverbrook has been subject to applications for felling, which was originally refused by committee, but then approved by committee subject to replacement tree. However, a replacement tree could not be agreed upon, and a subsequent application was subsequently approved by committee in 2019. Similarly, an application to fell the tree at 6 Riverbrook with no replacement was taken to committee with a recommendation of refusal, but was granted by committee. However, it is not considered that precedent of the removal of the surrounding trees, the remaining trees, has been set. The Council's tree officer was consulted as part of the application process. The recommendation received was one of refusal due to a lack of technical evidence to justify that the house was reason to remove the tree or for it to be removed significantly reduced. Additionally, our tree officer added that no evidence was provided to indicate the tree was causing a legal nuisance. The tree itself still provides amenity to the local landscape. The applicant advised the biggest concern was the leaves, twigs dropping from the tree, but case law states that trees are expected to drop leaves as it's their physiological process to do so. And the tree officer and case officer therefore concluded that there was no justification to warrant the tree's removal. Therefore, in conclusion, it's considered that it is not adequately demonstrated that the tree is no longer worthy of TPO. There's no technical evidence to suggest the health of the tree is compromised, and it was assessed that the tree still provides an amenity value to the local landscape. The recommendation is therefore of refusal to fell the tree as shown on page 147 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jackie. Can I move the recommendation, which is to refuse planning permission for the reasons reprinted? Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Any member wish to speak? Councillor Sargent.
That was quick. I'm aware of these trees, and I really can't see what amenity it provides to the local community. I mean, you can see them above the buildings. You know, if you look for them, you can't see them from the railway track. Obviously, there's two neighbours. I really just can't see why. They can't be taken down. They do cause a nuisance. Yeah, okay. Trees do drop leaves. They drop leaves where I live. And you have to clean them up. But if you see the gardens at Riverbrook, you'd know that they're quite small gardens. And if you've got sort of a large tree, like these lime trees are, dropping leaves and just literally being in the back garden, then that's got to be a case of concern. So I would be voting against refusal. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Thanks then.
Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So just to confirm then, this tree is one that's on the railway line sort of border. I am correct in thinking that, am I not? Yep.
Yes, you are correct.
Right, okay, thank you. So I just can't agree with putting these TPOs on things that are in people's back gardens. It's not us that have to take on this maintenance and things like that. I often wonder if the owners of these houses realise this and they take on something like this. I just can't agree with the officer's recommendation on this, so I'll be voting against the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? I know some of the history given on the properties in trees here, but we are looking at this one really. If I have a concern, we should be removing any trees unless they're in some sort of, if they're bad or they're likely to fall down and cause a problem. And my own personal view is the benefits and the amenity value far outweigh the disturbance to the properties. And I mean, clearly I don't know when anybody has moved into a property, but if they have a full land search and whatever, a full one, because not everybody does have a full one, that's where problems occur, then that search would show that there'd be a TPO on that tree. Thank you. Right. The recommendation is to refuse family. Somebody shouting up there. Right. I'll try it again. The recommendation is to refuse planning permission. Wendy, you could go through the list again, please.
Yes, Chair. Please indicate for or against or abstain when your name is called. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Guttridge.
For.
Councillor Hancocks.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Pandair.
For.
Councillor Redkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
Against.
Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Watkins.
Against.
That's carried, Chair.
Okay, so that item has been refused. Thank everybody for your patience. I think it's been a good meeting, good points made. Can I just, under any other business, just inform them that it is my intention to provide some training prior to the next either prior or the next meeting. I don't know as of yet about how many items we might be having, but it'll be my intention to either do it So we're always scheduled to start at 4 o'clock. We've got confidential items. If there's none, we use that hour to update some of our planning training. I'm also considering at the moment, rather than try and do a big virtual meeting, is maybe do the officers to produce a kind of training pack that wants to be trained on planning could look at that, and then maybe use that 1 hour for the meeting as kind of a question and answer session. Nothing's set in stone yet. It's just trying to do that. We have our new policy starting next week, I believe. So kind of want to run past my idea with him as well. But just that's my intention. Okay. Can I thank you all very much for your attendance and the meeting closed. Thank you.